Well, I'm a solid waste management professional and a city recycling coordinator. What that means is I measure garbage. I chart waste streams. I actually look up the tailpipe of consumption. It's part forensics, it's part psychology, it's part sociology, part anthropology, part material science, and part economics. But more than anything else, it's about mythology, because we generate a mythological amount of garbage. Waste isn't an accident. It's not a mistake. It's not a byproduct. It's created in the core of our stylized, innovative, and hyper-obsolescent economy. We think of waste as a noun, as material stuff, but more so, waste is a verb. It's an act of intelligence and creation. It appears with names such as convenience or sleek new styling. It comes in multiple colors, new features. It sparkles and shines. It seduces us. Garbage is part of our tribe. In our lifetime, each of us Americans will generate a pile of garbage the size of a 4-bedroom house. That pile is the result of millions of wasting decisions, and we hardly notice them. Our view is limited to the single cart at the curb, not the 52 weeks of the year, not the number of years we live, and not with the 7 billion people that we share the planet with. Americans throw out enough garbage to fill some 12.5 million semi-trucks that would circle the Earth 6.5 times every year. And that's just the waste at the end of the line. Primarily manufactured materials, packages, things like that. The real waste, some 20 to 70 times as much, is generated upstream. And that's in the extraction, the mining, the drilling, the logging, the farming, the refining, the manufacturing, the construction, the demolition, the packaging, the shipping, the advertising and retailing. So far, we're responsible for more waste than any civilization on Earth. So far. And I'm really cheering you up, aren't I? So on a recent beautiful Saturday morning, my neighbor Tracy and I were looking across the street at one of the newest lawns on the block. It was just this exuberant green. And she said, "Oh man, if I could only get my lawn to look like that." The lawn was Photoshop perfect. But after the next 20 years, are you ready? This patch of green will need some 400,000 gallons of water. That's a column of water on top of that grass, 6.5 stories tall, 20 years. It will need 800 mowings and blowings, leaving pounds of emissions and dust. It will generate 14,000 pounds of grass clippings, trucked to distant landfills or composting sites. It will be dethatched, aerated, top-dressed, reseeded, fertilized, chemically dosed for weeds, insects, and disease, and this is just one modest lawn. I have a long love affair with grass, actually. As an 11-year-old Midwest kid, I couldn't wait for the first time my dad let me yank that rope, rev up the engine, and just ram that ridiculous machine across the yard. After my first mowing, I smelled like cut grass and gasoline and exhaust. My high tops were stained green, and I was thrilled. My mowing lines got straighter, and at the age of 18, I tended golf courses in Temple Terrace, Florida. My boss assured me there was nothing more beautiful than a golf course. At age 19, I rolled out acres of bright green sod in Portland, Oregon, thinking that I was part of an extraordinary green movement. Then at 33, my wife, son, and I left the cool rains of Portland for a 4-year Southern California drought. The reservoirs were low, cities banned landscape irrigation, homeowners dyed their lawns green, and plastic grass actually became a serious consideration. In spite of all the drought headlines, my landlord insisted that I keep the sprinklers on, and I couldn't get the grass to grow. So Southern California water is scarce, and us 22 million inhabitants are growing further into the desert interior where water evaporates. In my neighborhood, aquifers are also plagued with hexavalent chrome, nitrates, solvents, and trichloroethylene. Billions of dollars have been spent to move water to Southern California cities from the Colorado River, the Owens Valley, and the Sacramento Delta. Nearly 20% of California's electricity goes to supplying and treating water. Ironically, billions have been spent to flush rainwater out of the same cities. Imagine wading in water just below your knees. All right, so that's about 14 inches or so. That's the annual rainfall that hits Los Angeles every year. Sometimes more, sometimes less. Well, for thousands of years, our native plants have done just fine on this. They just sip it. They wake up in the first rains, and they go back to sleep when it's hot and dry. This water intelligence is coiled in their DNA, and in the DNA of all the animals and the insects and the microbes that live alongside them. Now imagine water up to the middle of my chest. This is what a California lawn needs to stay green. Landscapes consume half of all the imported water used in Los Angeles homes. But the scale is much larger. Lawns are the biggest irrigated crop in the United States. All the drained lakes, the dammed rivers, the fuels, the millions of miles of polyvinyl chloride pipes, the chemicals and fertilizers, the satellite controllers, the thousands of gadgets and machinery, all this stuff for grass. And the crop is thrown away. That's where I come in. Grass clippings are collected in 35,000-pound trucks. They cost about $300,000 each. When you see these things going down your street, that's what they are. They burn a gallon of gas every 3 or 4 miles. And these massive machines and collection programs do something else. They enable us to throw away more waste faster, easier, and with less concern. The modern American lawn sprouted from an engineered mid-century aesthetic. Yards were scraped clean, then machined into flat panels, austere geometries, and straight borders. There was little concern for local ecologies, and the world population was only half of what it is today. In spite of all we know, the lawn aesthetic still remains. Market researchers say our first impressions hold a more authentic or original ranking in our heads. And these positive impressions of lawns are tenacious. But landscapes can do so much more. They can harvest and store water. That rain coming down can be captured, and it can be captured very simply. Your yards can recycle nutrients and build topsoils. You can restore native species. You can produce fresh fruit, food, medicines, building materials. You can grow cool islands instead of heat islands. You can eliminate dangerous chemicals. You can minimize waste collection systems. You can reduce energy consumption by shading or cooling your building. Our yards can bring creativity, beauty, and neighbors together. And these Southwest lawns are really the perfect place to do that. So how do we expect to succeed when we're, pushing against the force of nature? It's, like a good marriage, we need to listen to our partners and make an effort to work together. So there are basically four elements that I would like to leave you with to think about. First of all, you start with water. As Brad Lancaster says, grow water first. And that means you can multiply your water by taking it from your roof. That's your headwater. Your downspouts are your streams. Now what you do is you carve dry riverbeds into your yard, small ponds that harvest the water and sink it. You want to slow it and sink it. Secondly, keep your yard clippings on site. These things are full of nutrients, and organics build spongy, soft soils that hold water. If you're going to keep water, you want to have good soil to keep it in. And if you think like a forest and you cover the soil with leaves and chipped woody materials, water doesn't evaporate. It stays there, or it moves very slowly. Third, orient your designs to the arcs of the sun. Shade your buildings from heat. Create gathering spaces. Create stepped tree canopies. Think food forests. And finally, find plants that are married to the climate. Maybe you want to add an edible garden or a food forest, or just feed and delight your neighbors. Finally, I just want to remind you that everything is connected. Landscapes are a partnership with our place on earth. Thank you.